Have you ever added up what you spent on eating healthy? Not groceries, I mean the advice, the plans, the experts, the appointments that promise clarity but somehow leave you more confused than when you walked in. A few months ago, I sat at my kitchen table staring at a receipt for one consultation. 1 hour, $150. And that didn't include follow-ups, or meal plans, or the custom adjustments they recommended later. Now, I am not against professionals, not at all, but I started asking myself a simple question. At this stage of life, after 50, what am I really paying for? Is it expert knowledge, or just structure, accountability, and someone to translate common sense nutrition into a plan I'll actually follow? Because here's the truth most people won't say out loud. Eating gets more complicated as we age. Not just physically, but mentally. You hear one thing about protein, another about carbs. Suddenly sugar is the enemy. Then it's not. Then it is again. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise, you are just trying to figure out what to eat for dinner without feeling guilty. That was me. Not overweight, not unhealthy, just stuck. Stuck between advice, routines, and habits that didn't quite match my lifestyle anymore. So I made a decision. Instead of paying another $150 for another conversation that might or might not help, I tried something different. I used ChatGPT. Not as a gimmick, not as a shortcut, but as a stand-in. As my nutritionist, 30 days, no paid consultations, no human coach guiding me along the way, just me, my phone, and a tool that most people still think is just for writing emails or answering trivia questions. And I treated it seriously. I asked it what I would ask a real nutritionist. I followed what made sense. I ignored what didn't. The question was simple. Could something free, or nearly free, replace something people pay hundreds of dollars for? Or at least get close enough that it changes how you think about spending that money in the first place? And more importantly, after 50, does it actually help? Because let's be honest, this isn't about six-pack abs. It's about energy, sleep, digestion, feeling like your body is working with you, not against you. By the end of those 30 days, I had answers I didn't expect. Some good, some frustrating, some surprisingly effective, and a few moments where I thought, why didn't I try this sooner? But before I walk you through exactly what I did, you need to understand why the old way costs so much. Before you can decide whether something like ChatGPT is worth your time, you have to understand what you're actually paying for when you hire a nutritionist. Most people assume they're paying for some kind of secret knowledge, a hidden formula, a customized diet that only a trained expert can create. But when you break it down, most nutrition services, especially the ones in that $100 to $200 range per session, are built around a few core things. First, they ask questions. What do you eat now? When do you eat? Any health concerns? Any medications? Any food you don't like? Second, they organize that information into a plan. Not necessarily a revolutionary plan, but one that makes sense for your habits, your schedule, and your goals. And third, and this is the part people don't talk about enough, they keep you consistent. They remind you. They adjust things when you fall off. They give you that feeling that someone is paying attention. That last part matters more than people think. Because after 50, it's rarely about not knowing what's healthy. You already know vegetables are good. You already know processed food probably isn't helping you. The problem is consistency and clarity, and not overthinking every single meal. So when I looked at that $150 receipt again, I asked myself, which of these things could AI realistically handle? Could it ask the right questions? Could it build a simple, usable plan? And could it help me stay on track without me needing to schedule another appointment? That's where ChatGPT came in. Now, I didn't just open the app and say, make me healthy. That's where a lot of people go wrong. They treat AI like a magic button, and then they're disappointed when it gives generic answers. Instead, I treated it like a conversation with a real person. I started with something like this. I'm over 50. I want simple meals, not complicated recipes. I don't want to count every calorie. I want steady energy, better digestion, and meals I can actually stick to. Ask me questions before you give me a plan. That one sentence changed everything. Because instead of jumping straight into advice, it started asking me things I hadn't fully thought through. My typical breakfast, how often I snack, when I feel tired during the day. It wasn't perfect, but it was structured, and structure is what most people are paying for. So I set some very clear rules for my 30-day experiment. Number 1. No paid help. No nutritionist check-ins. No coaching apps. Nothing that added cost. Number 2. I would only follow advice that felt reasonable and safe. If something sounded extreme, I skipped it. No crash diets. No cutting entire food groups without a good reason. Number 3. I wouldn't aim for perfection. This wasn't about becoming a completely different person in 30 days. It was about seeing whether this tool could realistically support everyday decisions. And number 4. I would track how I felt. Not just weight, not just numbers, but energy levels, cravings, digestion, and how easy it was to stick with the plan. Because let's be honest, if something works on paper, but you hate doing it, you won't keep doing it. I also gave ChatGPT specific constraints: budget-friendly meals, simple ingredients, nothing that required special trips to expensive stores. And I made it adapt to my real life. If I knew I had a busy day, I told it. If I planned to eat out, I told it. If I messed up and had a day full of junk food, I told it that too. That's another thing people don't realize. AI only works as well as the information you give it. You can't expect a useful answer if you are vague. So instead of saying, "What should I eat?" I asked, "I have eggs, bread, yogurt, and frozen vegetables. I'm trying to avoid feeling sluggish in the afternoon. What would you suggest for today?" Simple, specific, real. And over time, something interesting started to happen. It stopped feeling like I was asking a machine for help. It started feeling like I had a flexible system that adjusted with me. Not perfectly, not magically, but consistently. Now, did it replace the human side of things? The accountability, the emotional support? That's what I was about to find out. Because setting up the experiment was one thing. Actually living with it for 30 days, that's where the real story begins. The first few days felt almost too easy. That was my first warning sign. You know that feeling when something seems simple on the surface, but you're not sure if it's actually doing anything meaningful. That's where I started. On day 1, I asked for a basic meal structure. Not a strict plan, just a rhythm. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, and 1 or 2 snacks that wouldn't leave me reaching for something sugary an hour later. It gave me a simple outline. Protein in the morning, something balanced at lunch, a lighter dinner, nothing revolutionary. But here's what surprised me. It explained why. Not in a lecture, just short, clear reasoning. Protein earlier may help with energy. Balanced meals can reduce afternoon crashes. That small detail made it easier to follow, because I wasn't just copying a plan. I understood it enough to adjust it. By day 3, I started getting more specific. I told it exactly what I ate the day before. Toast and coffee in the morning, a quick sandwich at lunch, something heavier at dinner, and then that familiar late-night snack I didn't really need. Instead of criticizing, it adjusted. Keep the toast if you like it, it suggested. But consider adding something with protein. Eggs, yogurt, even peanut butter. That's when it clicked. A real nutritionist might say the same thing. The difference is, I didn't have to wait 2 weeks for another appointment to hear it. Now, it wasn't all smooth. Around day 5, I made a mistake that a lot of people make with AI. I started asking lazy questions. What should I eat today? Give me a healthy plan. And just like that, the answers got worse. More generic, less useful. Almost like it was guessing instead of helping. That's when I realized something important. This only works if you stay engaged. So I went back to being specific. I have a long day tomorrow. I won't have time to cook lunch. What are two simple options I can prepare tonight that will keep me full? The answers improved immediately. Simple meals, nothing fancy. Things I could actually make without turning my kitchen upside down. By the end of the first week, I noticed something subtle. I wasn't overthinking food as much. That constant mental noise, is this good, is this bad, should I eat this, started to quiet down. Not because the answers were perfect, but because I had a system to fall back on. Week 2 is where things got more interesting. That's when real life started pushing back. I had a couple of days where I didn't follow anything. Ate out, grabbed whatever was convenient. One night, I went straight for comfort food without even thinking about it. Old habits don't disappear in a week. So the next morning, I told ChatGPT exactly what happened. No sugarcoating. And instead of resetting everything or suggesting something extreme, it did something surprisingly practical. It said, essentially, let's just get back to normal today. No punishment, no detox, no dramatic changes, just a normal balanced day. That alone was different from what I expected, because a lot of traditional plans, especially the expensive ones, tend to overcorrect. You slip once and suddenly you're being told to restrict, cut back, or compensate. This felt calmer, but there were frustrations too. Sometimes the suggestions were repetitive. Eggs showed up a lot. Yogurt showed up a lot. It made sense, but it got boring. Other times, it didn't fully understand context. I remember asking for a quick dinner, and it gave me something that still required chopping, cooking, and more effort than I had that evening. That's the limitation. It's helpful, but it's not living your life. So I had to push back. Make it simpler. No cooking tonight. I only have 10 minutes. And once again, the answers adjusted. That back and forth became the real system. Not one perfect plan, but a conversation that evolved. By week 3, something shifted. I wasn't just following suggestions anymore. I was making decisions faster. Standing in the kitchen, I didn't need to ask every time. I started recognizing patterns. Add protein. Balance the meal. Keep it simple. Those ideas repeated enough that they became automatic. And that's something I didn't expect from a free tool. It wasn't just giving answers. It was reinforcing habits. But I'll be honest. There were moments where I missed the human side. No one was checking in on me. No one noticed if I skipped a day or ignored the plan entirely. If you rely heavily on accountability, that absence matters. This system depends on you showing up. No reminders, no appointments, no one waiting for you to report back. Just you, and whether you choose to keep going. By the end of the 30 days, I had a routine that looked simple on paper. But getting there wasn't automatic. It was a mix of trial and error, good days and off days, useful answers and frustrating ones. So the real question wasn't just, did it work? It was, how well did it work compared to something people pay hundreds of dollars for? And more importantly, who should actually trust something like this and who shouldn't? That's where the results tell a very different story. So, after 30 days of using ChatGPT instead of a $150 nutritionist, what actually changed? Let's start with a simple, honest answer. It worked, but not in the way I expected. I didn't wake up with a completely different body. I didn't follow some perfect plan every single day. There were still moments where I ate out, skipped structure, or just didn't feel like thinking about food at all. But something more practical changed. Decision making got easier. That might not sound dramatic, but after 50, that's a big deal. Because a lot of the struggle isn't knowledge, it's friction. It's standing in your kitchen at 6 p.m., wondering what to eat, feeling tired, and defaulting to whatever is easiest. That friction started to disappear. Not completely, but enough. I had go-to meals, simple combinations, things I didn't have to think twice about. And when I did need help, I didn't have to wait for an appointment or second guess whether my question was worth asking. I just asked. Energy-wise, I felt more consistent. Not a sudden boost, just fewer crashes. Fewer of those mid-afternoon slumps where you reach for something sugary just to get through the day. Digestion improved slightly too, nothing dramatic, but noticeable enough that I didn't ignore it. And maybe the biggest change was confidence. Not confidence in the tool, but confidence in my own choices. Because after 30 days of asking questions, adjusting meals, and seeing patterns repeat, I started to trust myself more. Now, let's talk about the money. If you are seeing a nutritionist once a month at $150, that's $1,800 a year. If you go twice a month, that number doubles. And again, there is real value in professional guidance, especially if you have medical conditions, specific dietary needs, or you are dealing with something complex. But for everyday structure, for simple guidance, for figuring out what to eat without overcomplicating it, I spent essentially nothing. And I got probably 70 to 80% of what I was actually using those appointments for. Not the same experience, but close enough to make me pause before spending that money again. Now, who is this actually for? If you are someone who already understands the basics but struggles with consistency, this can help. If you want flexible guidance without feeling locked into a rigid plan, this can help. If you like asking questions and adjusting as you go, this can help. But let me be just as clear about who this is not for. If you need medical supervision, this is not a replacement. If you are managing conditions that require precise nutrition, this is not enough on its own. If you rely on someone checking in on you, holding you accountable, or guiding you emotionally through the process, a human still matters. And that's important, because this experiment is not about replacing professionals entirely. It's about understanding what you're paying for, and what parts of that you might be able to handle differently. Now, a quick but important disclaimer. This is my personal experience. It's not medical advice, not legal advice, and not individualized financial advice. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not diagnosing or treating anything. If you have health concerns, are taking medication, or need personalized guidance, you should always consult a licensed professional before making changes. What this showed me is something much simpler. A lot of what we pay for isn't just expertise, it's structure, repetition, and clarity. And tools like ChatGPT can provide some of that, if you use them properly. Not perfectly, not magically, but practically. So here's a simple next step you can try. Tomorrow morning, before breakfast, open ChatGPT and ask one clear question. Tell it your age range. Tell it what you usually eat. Tell it one thing you want to improve: energy, digestion, simplicity. And then let it ask you questions back. Not to replace anything important, just to see what happens when you bring a little structure into your day, without spending another $150 to get it.